everyone, this is Zora, and welcome back to my series on how to GM Vampire the Masquerade. In the previous episodes, we've looked at laying the foundation, we've looked at making characters, and we've looked at the schemes and politics of this city. And today we are going to end the series on what is arguably the hardest part of running any tabletop game, especially if you're a newcomer. Session 1. So, Session 1 has a few goals that it needs to accomplish. First of all, it needs to set the tone. Are you going to be running it like a horror game? Is it a mystery game? Is it an action game? You want to set the tone for the players. You want to introduce conflicts that are going to last the rest of the campaign. And lastly, you want to get to know the characters. Because generally, I find, no matter how well you plan a character, you'll never really know what they're like until you actually get to roleplay them. So always, 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 in any session, but especially in Session 1, make room for characters to just talk. Talk to their NPCs, talk to each other, so everyone can kind of get a grip on who they're playing, and so you can get a grip on who they're playing. But that's not the sort of advice I'm here to give. I'm here to talk about actually running the main body of this session. And let's start with what is probably the hardest part of most tabletop games that Vampire actually makes surprisingly easy, which is gathering the party together in the first place. Now, you might think that's harder to do in Vampire the Masquerade, because in D&D, generally your players won't care if it's the typical, oh, everyone meets at a bar and this kind old stranger gives them a job. Generally, your players won't care about that, but Vampire is supposed to be a more realistic game. I generally have two solutions for this, both of which are fairly easy. One, during character creation, ask the PCs to, define their relationships with each other. Everyone doesn't need to know everyone else, but as long as all the PCs have some sort of tie to another PC, then it's easier to tie them in because they know each other. That's if you want to go the most, free organic route. The other option, which Vampire kinda hands GMs on a silver platter, is just have a city official assemble them. In Vampire the Masquerade, parties are called coteries, or packs in some games, and each coterie is assembled by the city for a specific purpose. So if you want a quick and easy way to get the party together, just have, the prince or the baron or whoever be like, hey, the PC sires, you all owe me favors completely coincidentally. Your child are gonna join this coterie for me. And what are those favors? As I've made abundantly clear throughout this series, that's a question with a lot of backstory potential. So yeah, now you have your coterie together, which is probably the hardest part of the hardest part of running a tabletop game. So let's get down to actually planning what adventure the characters are going to go on in this first session. First of all, you want an idea what is happening and how do the PCs get involved in this. What I like to do to immediately kind of get the juices flowing is to go to the scheme countdown clocks we made in the previous episode, and I like to check off one or both of the first slots. For this video, I checked off both. So at the start of the campaign, we already have news of werewolves spying on the Anarchs. And Evan Ross has begun communicating with the Camarilla of Denver, who are sending a spy over. So that's what we're going to work with this session. On one hand, you have werewolves spying on the city. On the other, you have the Camarilla getting ready to spy on the city, which is interesting. That's a lot of fun red herring stuff. So first thing I like to do is a general overview, just kind of what the whole session is going to be about. All right, so the basic outline for this session. The werewolves in the desert begin to place spies in Merowidge as they prepare to launch an attack on the city. Baron Lloyd notices these spies and assembles a coterie to investigate. Meanwhile, Evan Ross's contacts in Denver send a spy of their own to see if the city is worth taking over. So that's what this session's gonna be about. So now we'll create a countdown clock and see how this sort of thing will progress. Like I said in the previous episode, the countdown clock is a map, but it's not the route. Your players will decide how they get from A to B. Your map is just going to be the A to B, or more accurately, because it's normally 6 points. So let's start off with the actual assembling of the coterie. Alright, so at stage 1, Baron Lloyd calls in favors owed by the PC sires to assemble a coterie. She tells them that an outside force has been spying on popular anarch hangouts and tasks the coterie with finding out more about them. At this point, no one is aware that the spies are with the Lupine, so it's just, hey, there's some dangerous people that we don't recognize spying on us. Go see what that's about. Also, she gives them the location of a building the spies were investigating. Alright, and that will set up point 2. Naturally, from point 1, the coterie is led to the location given to them. They investigated a small burger joint, which you would actually want to give a name to, and learn a few things about the spy. He was wearing sunglasses despite how late it was. He appeared normal, but made people around him uncomfortable, just sort of gave off that vibe. And he seemed like he was alone. After an hour of watching the place, the creature left. So that should start planting some clues in the party's head. It gives off an aura, which some werewolves are known to do. He's wearing sunglasses to dampen his wolf-like senses and not get overstimulated. And he's alone. Because that's mostly there to make the party be like, oh, if we find him, we can take him. Which they will not be able to because it is a werewolf. So, yeah. Next, we'll head on to point 3, where we'll start tying in this second plot. The party continues their search, but they've kind of hit a dead end. But as they do so, they run into a vampire they've never seen before. Lexi Lee, a caitiff who fled Denver to escape the prejudice of the Camarilla. Or so she says. She reports hearing great things about marriage, but won't say where she heard these things from. Elias Park, the Baron's right-hand man, is nervous about this, but Baron Lloyd welcomes the girl into the city, because the more the merrier, am I right? So, following that up, while they're most likely with the Baron, because, hey, it's a new vampire, maybe we should tell the Baron about this. Or maybe they're just contacted by the Baron, who knows. The same creature is spotted at another Anarch-sponsored business, but this time he is harassing the owners and demanding to speak to their quote-unquote benefactor. If the party tries to fight him, he will quickly stand down and leave, fearing that his show of force might have tipped off the vampires. And the party can try and track him, if they want, to a hotel. If they fail the tracking roll, he still goes to the hotel and they still follow him, but he's aware of their presence and he doesn't let on. Which leads us to step 5, the climax. So, at number 5, we have 2 sorts of ways this could be set up. If the party tracks the werewolf successfully and they're not detected, the creature talks to 2 mortal servants, confirming with them that vampires are in the city and that the Lupine need to act fast to take them out. When the party try to leave, the werewolf senses them with his keen werewolf schnoz, and the building goes on lockdown, forcing the party to sneak or fight their way out. On the other hand, if the werewolf noticed the party, they go into the hotel, at which point a squad of kinfolk, which is a mortal servant to a werewolf, armed in just like SWAT level weaponry and gear and armor, descend on the party. They know that they can't kill vampires, but they're throwing their lives away so that the werewolf they serve can escape. If the werewolf manages to escape, then he will no longer be operating out of that hotel because it's not safe and their base of operations has been compromised. So the falling action or resolution has two possible endings. If the hotel is still intact and wasn't shot up by a SWAT team, the party are granted a domain near the hotel so they can watch it for further activity from the werewolves. On the other hand, if the SWAT team attacked the party and the hotel was trashed in the process, and especially if the werewolf managed to get away, Baron Loin is disappointed in the coterie, but will grant them a haven anyway. The hotel itself. Either way, the Anarchs end up aware that the werewolves are coming for their city. So that's sort of the basic layout. The next thing I want to do is actually make 2 more countdown clocks. So far, in the previous episode, we made an overarching session-spanning countdown clock. In this one, we made one that'll last, like, 1 episode, I guess, quote-unquote. And now we'll make one that lasts 1 scene to track a very small conflict. And that scene is going to be the party trying to sneak out of the hotel. So this is going to be divided into 4 phases. Each phase is going to have 3 parts: a setup, a win state, and a lose state. The story will go on either way, but if the party, I guess, quote unquote, fails at a section, the next section will be harder. So, the setup, the floor the party is on, gets rushed by armed kinfolk who start searching the floor. If the party managed to escape them without alerting them, the lower floors will be less alert. Each will have like 1 to 3 kinfolk on them, and more importantly, mortals will still be there. If the party is spotted, however, backup will be sent to those lower floors, doubling the enemies the party will have to face, and the mortal occupants of the building will be evacuated, which will allow the kinfolk and the werewolf to both go whole hog when hunting the party. Alright, so in phase 2, the kinfolk on not the bottom floor, the second floor, or the first floor, if you're European. The kindred on the second floor patrol casually, trying to blend in with the occupants of the hotel. If the party notices them or evades them, resume as normal. If the kinfolk manage to find the party, every kinfolk in the building will swarm to that location, trapping the party on that floor. And lastly, because we're just gonna go 3 for this, is the biggest escalation of them all. The party engage with the werewolf itself. The Lupine Stalker takes on his war form and begins to stalk the party through the ground floor, sending mortal staff and occupants cowering into their rooms. This really has an obvious win state of the party escape, since they're finally on the ground floor. If the party are caught at this stage, give them maybe like a round or 2 of combat. And then, after that, the police will show up, having received a 911 call, because, big surprise, a bunch of people running around with guns and a giant war form werewolf are gonna catch a lot of attention. This will give the party a chance to slip out with minimal injuries. And the last thing I like to do when planning a session is to go kind of look over the session, and this is just something that I do to save myself a lot of headache, is look at any significant PCs, anyone that couldn't be described as an extra, and give them a name. because it'll save you a lot of headache. So let's name the werewolf Scott Walker, a lupine stalking the city of Mirovich. And that's another character sheet you'll want to make. Next, the two kinfolk, Hank and Wesley Baxter. They're two brothers. They are Scott's nephews and his servants. And lastly, let's just name the owners of the places that Scott is stalking. We have Chance and Summer Hopkins, the owner of a diner that the Anarchs fund, and Brody Hamilton, the teenage cashier that Scott verbally assaults in step 4. And that's sort of it. And generally, this is how I will plan every session. Each session, if the party have not interfered with one of the countdown clocks, then I'll mark that off. I'll mark off every countdown clock they didn't interfere in, and every one that actually helped, and that'll form the basis of the next session. And that's the end of this series. I hope it's been helpful. This is just the end of the series for now. I might come back later to just give some general advice, but as for the main series, this is it. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. I had a lot of fun making these videos and diving into sort of the process I use to run these sorts of games. As always, my name is Zora. Trans rights.